Good morning, everybody. How you doing today? It's a lovely day, June 10th, I believe it is. It's a Thursday morning here in Minnesota. I'm happy to report I have found a few records I've been looking for a long time, and I got good prices on both of them. And first I want to talk about two questions I have. And this is for most of you guys out there, subscribers, and just other people out there in YouTube land. A, how do you listen to music? What is your primary listening tool? Streaming? Is it watching YouTube? Is it vinyl? I'm curious. For me, it's probably 90% vinyl. And then it's probably... I still got thousands of CDs, but I don't listen to them very much. I probably stream, you know, Pandora or whatever, Spotify, 10-15% of the time. A lot of that's outside when I'm by the pool. I'll put on, you know, obviously some on my phone. But I'm in the house, I try to have a vinyl on as often as possible. Sometimes I'll play a Pandora station for my wife that's not jazz, some kind of melancholy stuff that'll not annoy her. She needs a break from jazz sometimes, and I get that. So whenever we're doing something together, I usually don't play jazz for her. Sometimes with the kids even, I'll put on some hip-hop or something, but my idea of classic hip-hop, what the kids want to listen to, even as a DJ, I have a hard time with a lot of today's music. It's just so boring. And musically, you can digest it all within 16 measures. It's not like you take 16 listens to comprehend it. It's 16 measures. You're like, okay, that's all this song's going to be is that. Got it. So then you're talking about lyrics, and for the most time, lyrics keep my interest 2 or 3 times. And if it's self-loathing and feeling sorry for themselves and not seeing the positivity and the potential of life versus the negativity, I can only listen to that once. And I'm like, I don't need to hear that ever again. You know? It comes back to the whole philosophy thing. It's hard to listen to stuff that doesn't jive with how you want to live your life. I don't want to sit around wasting my time crying about what I don't have, feeling sorry for myself. I want to be content, living among the stars, being a conscious being, being allowed this gift of flesh for 75 years to make the best of it, not to make the worst of it. So anyway, what do you guys listen to the most? And what percentage of what you listen to is jazz? I would say I have 14,000 records, give or take, and my vinyl is probably 5,000 jazz records, and the rest of it's rock, hip-hop, R&B, soul, funk, all that stuff, reggae. And I would say the last couple of years, jazz has been probably 80% of my listening. And I rarely put anything else on when I'm here alone, or when it's just me and the kids that are doing schoolwork or something. I put jazz on. I'm not distracted by words that annoy me or I've heard too much. It's just kind of, it's really taken over my listening. And a lot of times too, people say, we'll share something, like watch this, check this out. And it's not like I can just pause my app on my phone and my music stop. I have to get up and go turn a needle off a record. And that's something I'm just not willing to do very often. And by the time that record's over, I've already had 7 new posts or comments, and I've forgotten about looking at what someone asked me to look at. I don't spend a lot of time listening to a computer. I look at it quite a lot, but I'm not listening to the computer very often. Very rarely when I'm staring at my computer screen is my volume up and I'm hearing anything from it. And I don't even hardly watch my own channel anymore. I used to watch it just to kind of take pointers and see how, but I rarely watch my episodes now. I've been busy working on the house as well, which has been part of it. But so, what do you listen to the most? And what format do you listen to the most? How many of you guys are vinyl only or vinyl mostly guys and gals? I'm just curious to know. There's no right or wrong here. It's just what your life has afforded you. You know, my record collection, a lot of it was collected in the 90s and early 2000s when vinyl was rather discarded, especially in the 90s. You know, I got a lot of great classic rock in the 90s for dollars on the pennies on the dollar, sorry. Of course, now the prices have gotten so unbelievably crazy. And that's the next thing I want to ask you people about, is how do you feel about buying good records or good plus records? how standard you feel the grading is from seller to seller on eBay and on Discogs. When you can't look for yourself, how often do you want to trust and risk on a good plus, especially if it's really rare? And for me, I'll often take that chance because I'm like, oh, a good copy is going to cost me $200, $300, $400, $500. Here's one that's, I say it's playable, it doesn't skip, it's got some background noise. So you hope, take that chance, you make them an offer and say you want 120, here I can offer you 60 for it, you know, and they'll say, well, I'll take 75. I'll do, how about 75 with shipping? And then you get that record and you hope that it's playable enough where you can digest the music and listen to it and add it to your library and feel, okay, I have this now. And you hope maybe a better piece will drop in your lap someday, but you know that's not likely to be the case. And I'll say for the most part, I've been pretty fortunate. I would say 8 out of 10 times when I've bought a good plus, the seller overstated how rough it was. They mentioned every little thing, most of which I wouldn't have even noticed because that's not how I look at records. You know, I'm just listening to, can I listen to it? That's what I pretty much care about. And for the most part, I've been very fortunate. I've got a lot of great records for a great price. Sometimes unbelievable price. You know, and that's that whole thing. You have to make offers. You don't know how long somebody's been sitting on something. Someone might have had this for 5 years, put a high number on it, and no one's come close to that number. No one's even made an offer because they're like, oh, it's 180 bucks. I don't want to spend that much on that, especially in that condition. Make that guy an offer, see what he says. But lately, I've had a couple records show up that were listed as goods that were unplayable. And I want to know what you guys think about this. If a record is unplayable, and of course, if the jacket's a very good plus, that there's some value in a nice jacket, no question about it. Is there $50 worth of value in a jacket? No. Never. I don't think, you know, even an old Blue Note jacket, unless it's near mint, the jacket's not more than 50 bucks, in my mind. So that comes down to how much you're willing to spend for a record on a gamble, knowing it might just be something you hang on the wall. And I think with card collecting, sports cards, car collecting, most things, stamps, coins, the level of what something is worth is so in relationship to its condition. And for most of my years collecting records, that's been definitely part of the equation, is, oh, the condition is this, so now it's worth 90% less than a mint one would be. So I'm going to ask $15 for it and say it's in rough shape. Say it's nearly unplayable. You know, should a record that's that unplayable ever be over $100? I don't care what it is. And, I guess there's levels to everything. If you're talking about a Robert Johnson 78 that they've only made so many of them, and he got destroyed during the war with the shellac drives and all that, maybe a Robert Johnson shellac 78 that's super rare and completely unplayable, maybe that's $100, $200, just so someone can say they have it, put it on their wall. But for semi-quasi-rare jazz records that are good, and forget fair, I'm talking good plus, I don't think those should ever be over $100. If you know it's that rough, you shouldn't have paid that for it, and I bet you they didn't. But they're hoping that they can find someone who wants it bad enough that they'll pay $150 for it. Just curious what y'all think. You know, I'll take the gamble probably more than a lot of you will. You know, I'm not an audiophile. I don't care about some snaps and crackles if it gets me a record I really want. So, what format you guys listen to? Put it in the comments. Let me know. It's always nice to hear what other people's ratios are, because, like, again, mine's probably pretty skewed. Jazz on vinyl 80% of the time, and then a little bit of reggae here and there, a little bit of R&B soul, neo soul, once in a while hip hop, once in a while some electronic, smooth, chill out, and down tempo kind of stuff. Once in a while a little deep house if I'm playing the house or something. But for the most part, You know, rock and roll, it's tidbits here and there. Maybe I'll think of Van Ride, and I'll bring a couple Neil Young CDs, a Bob Dylan album, you know, just to kind of rehear that stuff, because it's nice to go back to it once in a while. But where are you guys at with it, and how do you guys feel about records that are good plus? And what should the ceiling be on a good plus record? I'll tell you what, the record I bought 2 weeks ago and got in the mail last week, there's no way this should have been a $160 record or whatever it was, and I got it for, I think, $60, and I was still very disappointed. Very disappointed. And there's just got to be some morality in this, some honesty, transparency. And the guy's description wasn't super off, but this was not a good. This was not a good record. Moving on. 2 records I found recently that I'm kind of really excited about. Number one, we're listening to Jimmy Giuffre's Fusion. And this is a record with some edge to it. There's some real lows and highs and just real modern edges of the avant-garde. Not even edges, it's full-blown avant-garde. And it's really kind of ahead of the curve. This kind of minimalist, cerebral, thought-punching soundscape. You got Steve Swallow on the bass, Paul Bly on the piano, who's a Canadian, and then, of course, the great Jimmy Giuffre, who's one of the most innovative voices in jazz in the 50s. And I did an episode comparing him to Coltrane, and he's ahead of Coltrane in terms of the curve, in terms of innovating and becoming the sounds of dissonance, the sounds of composition that will have spaces and passages, and you could make a haunted film with this soundtrack. And this is one of those records now that can go for $100 easy. On Verve, that's hard to do. On Verve, it's hard to get a record in those upper ranges because there were just so many of them made compared to Blue Note. But this record goes for pretty good bucks, and I got this one for $25. And the guy said it was good plus maybe, and it plays like a very good plus. It plays fine. You know, there's been a snap, crackle here and there. For the most part, it's been wonderful, and I finally have this in my collection. And if you want to listen to a couple piece passages here. Monk, Mingus, you know, a lot of what's coming modern. This is a precursor and really in step with all the modernism. And he's a very modern cat. Giuffre's a very modern thinker. And so even before your Ornette Coleman's come along, Jimmy Giuffre's already going back to 54 at Capitol, starting to do some very interesting things. And this trio with Swallow and Bly, they make a couple of records at Verve that are really interesting records. They're not hard swinging or blues driven. They're interesting sonic soundscapes that have very interesting passages and are very innovative. And it's a case where the white cats are pushing the envelope. In a lot of ways, I feel like with the avant-garde, the black guys, once in a while will play catch up, like, oh, let's borrow some of that what those white cats are doing. But the black cats seem more destined to play the blues and swing and just express some soul, and the white cats are more cerebral, it feels like a lot of times. And once in a while, the two push each other. The white cats always wanted to swing like the black guys. Ain't no secret about that. I think once in a while, the black cats wanted to be as innovative and as off the path as some of the white cats found it easy to be. The modern white music tradition has plenty of dissonance in it, going back to the great European composers. You know, rhythm and blues, black music is built on rhythm and swing and pulse, and dissonance was never as much part of that vocabulary. You know, when you listen to all the origins of the blues and all those steps as it leads into the modern era, it was always about rhythm. And white music was more about composition and having parts that transition and having dissonance. Ellington, of course, embraced dissonance frequently, and few people actually manipulate dissonance like Ellington does. Ellington's a master at dropping some minor rain clouds over an ice cream meadow of major sounds. Like his counter ideas are always so compulsive and just make you feel something, which is so interesting. But Giuffre's a great player and a very interesting thinker, and he's someone that I think more of us should be in recognition of. And having said that, like I said, his records are starting to go for pretty good money now, and so people are getting the message. Now, this is a record I looked for probably 2 years, and boy, I searched and I searched, never got close to getting an original epic pressing of it. They always go for hundreds of dollars at auction. Ben Webster, right off the bat, he's going soft with this beautiful palette of lavenders, sapphires, but soft. It's just, right away I was like, oh, love this. Rouse is such a great player, and Rouse kind of exists in between your Dexter Gordon and your John Coltrane, Sonny Rollins. You know, he has that link to Gordon and even Webster in his genealogy, and he has some of that sense of playing a ballad and telling a story. But Rouse also could embrace the dissonant and the avant-garde and worked with Monk forever, which takes a pretty creative ear to be considered the one jigsaw puzzle piece that fits with Monk well. And that wasn't the case for most guys. But listen to that beauty. It's so soft and gentle. And he does that record at Blue Note, that Bossa Nova record, Bacchanal, whatever it is. That's a great record as well. Another great Charlie Rouse record, of course, is his record with Paul Kinnichet. This is on Bethlehem. It's a stereo copy of that. This also could go for hundreds of dollars. Tough record to come by. I was lucky enough to get an original of that, albeit a stereo. There, though, it's the chase. It's a bit more up-tempo on a regular basis, and there's some up-tempo on this as well, but it's the ballads that really jump out at me. You Don't Know What Love Is, No Greater Love, just Stella by Starlight, gorgeous stuff. Rouse, of course, was also a member of Les Modes, LES, the French, MODES, Les Modes, and that's with the great Julius Watkins, is it? French horn player. And those records are pretty tough to come by on Dawn. They have a couple on Atlantic that are fairly tough to come by as well, from the late 50s. You gotta love Charlie Rouse. His whole career is very interesting and covers a lot of different angles. From Les Modes to working with Kinnichet to the stuff here to the stuff he's doing with Monk. Charlie Rouse has a wide palette. The Bossa Nova at Blue Note. There's a lot of interesting things in his canon that I'm a big fan of, and I wanted this record for a long time. Like I said, I never was able to find one, and I made a record episode recently about records I can't find, and someone found one of these for me in Japan for like 25 bucks. The shipping was like 40 bucks only. I was thrilled. I'm like, oh yeah, heck yeah. It's got the right album cover too, which to me is always important. I need the right album cover. So this is a Japanese, probably 80s pressing, but I'm thrilled to have it. It sounds fantastic. The bass is thick and warm, and Charlie Rouse is just beautiful. A little more upbeat there, a little bit more of the Sonny Rollins, you know. But it's interesting how a guy like Rouse doesn't get as much credit as a Rollins or as a Coltrane. Yet his career is as varied as Coltrane's. His work with Monk is super on the edges, and yet he's also doing Bossa Nova records that are brilliant, and making records like this that channel the great Ben Webster, the great Coleman Hawkins, the great giants of the tenor saxophone. Rouse is a guy that should be recognized. Beautiful. And again, it's a case of where, when you know the songs, the lyrics of the songs, a great horn player can emote those lyrics and express like a voice and really connect with an audience. Here's another Al Casey record I talked about. I mentioned Al Casey a few episodes ago. This is his other record on Prestige. It's on the Swingsville label, number 2007. I finally got this. Thrilled to have it. Fantastic stuff. great guitar player and really underappreciated. The last thing I want to show you is I finally got my first jazz Electra record. And I know Electra for rock and roll, you know, the Doors were famous for being on Electra, but Electra goes back into the mid-50s. I think even the early 50s. And there's not a lot of great jazz titles on there. The first one that comes to mind is the Art Blakey Session, which was reissued on Savoy like the next year, which is bizarre. How did Savoy end up getting licensing to the next year? Because Electra didn't go into business. But I had the Savoy press. I never did get the Electra one. I wanted to get one when it comes along for the right price. But I finally got this Teddy Charles record, Vibrant, with the fantastic album cover. It's just beautiful. The colors, the way that motion, activity all kind of pops. It's just really well done. And it's Electra number 136. There's not a lot of stuff, like I said, on Electra. I've looked. It's got a cool inner logo label there. It's a pretty rare record. And it's a great Teddy Charles. And it's with an incredible lineup, too, if I recall. Mal Waldron, Addison Farmer, Idris Suleiman. Suleiman's killer on this. He's really awesome, playing both muted and open valve trumpet. He's really does some wonderful things. So it's a fun little electric piece, and it's one I've always kind of wanted to have. Finally found one at the right price, and one again it doesn't pop up a lot. And so the Rouse stuff is great. The Jimmy Giuffre records, if you like avant-garde, you should check those records out. They'll definitely move you and give you a lot of that what you're looking for, and recognize he's one of those guys that is as much a driving force behind it as a Mingus. He really is. So, short episode today. It's hot in here. We've had a stretch of days in Minnesota here, like 6 straight days over 90 degrees, which is fairly uncommon. Over 30 degrees for the rest of you around the world. It's been pretty sweltering. Spent a lot of time floating in the pool and in the basement watching movies. The rest of my house doesn't have air conditioning, minus our bedroom, and so it's been tough sledding. But you still got to get your jazz in. You still got to make your episodes and listen to jazz, because it's good for the soul. It's good for the heart. It connects with my consciousness and my spirit, and it elevates me is what it does. It lifts me up and reminds me that people with greater struggle than mine found a way to make beauty in this life. How dare I complain? How dare I wallow in what I don't have, when men with such less than me did such great things? That's a message I think we need to take from jazz. It shouldn't just be my experience. I think we all need to recognize that out of great sorrow came this great art. And that should motivate us. It should stimulate us. It should give us incentive to not complain, to not bemoan our lot. Because people have had it a lot tougher and done a lot with that still. My name is Dan. I'm the Jazz Shepherd. Y'all stay safe, stay cool out there. Check out the Patreon page if you want to support it. There's great Jazz Shepherd merchandise at the store in the description. Grab a t-shirt for the summer. Always appreciate the support. We'll be back at you soon. Got lots of great content coming. Appreciate you all. Thanks to all my Patreon supporters. Love you guys. Be safe. Peace.